The cloud. All right, now we're going.
Hey everybody, welcome to Self-Publishing Podcast. It's been a busy week at Sterling and Stone, and I just realized now, I just saw something going on, and I was like, well, I'm pretty excited about that, and I don't know if we are talking about that, and
That's my something cool.
Thing.
It's my something cool.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to get through Act 2. So Sean actually... I don't know where the soggy middle thing came from, but
It's in your Slack.
No, I didn't say soggy middle.
My stomach.
I said something about Act 2 or whatever, and you interpreted it as soggy middle, which was another thing you did during another meeting. You said, well, soggy middle, that's the part you're talking about. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about eating soggy. That's disgusting.
Hold on.
Act 2. I might have reiterated your use of soggy middle just so we'd be on the same page. Might have been one of those deals.
Oh, no. You called it sticky middle. That's what you called it.
That's even worse.
Okay. So I
think I was repeating your use of sticky middle, though. Act 2, getting stuck in the middle. Stuck in the middle is better than sticky middle. It's different. So, okay, well, whatever. You're writing along. The beginning is easy-ish, like you're excited. The end, you kind of know how it all wants to come together, and usually you're excited and moving fast by the time you get to the third act. But it's that middle part, the sticky, soggy biscuit middle.
Wow, you brought the biscuit in?
That's why it's a problem. That's why it's a problem. It's because of that.
Oh, see,
Aaron.
I don't even think biscuit when I hear soggy. I think limp. No, that's when I think biscuit. Never mind.
Very confusing. All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is how to get through that part. And this is Sean and I actually did a little live speaking thing here in Austin last night, and we talked a little bit about this, and it was on our mind. We were talking about something a little while ago, and so this is fresh, and I think this is a thing a lot of people run into. Like, okay, well, now what do I do? My characters are stuck in the sticky middle, and
with you. And we actually have two different projects that we're working on right now that are both in the sticky, soggy middle, and having some growing pains. So I think it's very normal. Well, actually, that's for the show, so I'll wait before I start going on that.
Okay, so I want to go first with something cool, because this actually just I sort of had some with something cools, and I could have pulled something out, and then I just had a last minute replacement. My new something cool bumped the old something cool.
Wow. It's a good thing we're doing 2 episodes back to back today.
I have nothing for the second because they were actually weren't
bumped
good.
It.
Yeah, I know, but it wasn't very good to begin with, so it was a good bump. It was successful.
Well, it's a good thing we have a break between the 2 shows. You can think of something.
We don't really have much of a break. So anyway, it was I was going through, like I listened to a lot of our podcasts just because I don't know, like it's kind of cool to revisit some of the stuff, and I really like backstory because it's like, I don't know, like I enjoy hearing like, oh, those were our thoughts on this or whatever. And so there were 2 in there that I had kind of been avoiding because I didn't want spoilers and stuff. And it was Sean and Dave talking about 1, Yesterday's Gone, and 2, Available Darkness. And I read season 1 of Yesterday's Gone, but I didn't get any further. And then I thought, how long is it going to be before I read those?
The necrophilia?
But that's exactly my point. Is it's so much of it is already spoiled because I know little details like that aren't really spoilers. And Sean has talked my ear off about a lot of this stuff. Like I remember we were in line at Cedar Point with our families, and Sean was like, well, this is going to spoil Yesterday's Gone season whatever, but I got to tell you this thing. So I figured I'm just listen to him anyway, like whatever. And they were both really cool for different reasons. So the Yesterday's Gone one was super cool because I wasn't involved in Yesterday's Gone at all, but I have great affection for Yesterday's Gone because it was the start of what we're really doing here. Like that was the thing. That was you guys publishing every week, and that was the thing that you were doing that gave me hope, like, oh, I can do this. And Available Darkness I thought was super cool because even though I didn't know a lot about the story, you guys told the very genesis of when you were originally, like when you started working together, and in 2008 you wrote it and you published them week by week on a blog, and it was just this really
that was old school
that I didn't have,
Like 8 years ago now. 8 years ago, that's crazy.
Yeah, so those were very good. They're both recent. Don't listen to them unless you, number one, know you won't read the series all the way through anytime soon, or number two, already have. But those were very cool on our Backstory podcast.
So basically, Dave, you can listen to all of the Realm and Sands backstories if you want.
Fuck you.
Maybe not Dead City. I think he's still plugging away.
Yeah, he's past the wedding scene there, but he's not to the reception yet. Okay, so my something cool is apparently we can't go a week without bringing someone else into Sterling and Stone. So long time commenter, Tammy Lebrecq is now there's Tammy. Yeah. Beth says,
I just said I knew it.
Yeah, there's a little funny story about that actually. So
eventually our entire audience will be working with us.
Because
it does seem to be the way things
very
go.
slow plan. Yeah, so Tammy, we're going to be doing some romance stuff in the future. And Tammy is our we actually have an official title for her, and I don't think Johnny knows this title yet. But Tammy did say, I want a cool title. Like that was part of her list of demands.
I don't even have a cool title.
For coming board. You're the curmudgeon. Like that's your title.
Right.
And so Tammy said, I want a really cool title. And I pitched it to her, and I think her exact words were, I love it. Let me check something right here.
Wow, that is hard to remember. So you gotta make sure you get those words exactly right.
Yeah, it is exactly right. I love it. So Tammy is our romance hacker, which is kind of sexy. That's cool. So welcome, Tammy. And she wanted to put
did she like it as much as Viral Engineer? As that was
No, I think she liked it a little more than Viral Engineer. So yeah, Tammy was putting it on Facebook a couple days ago. She said, I want to tell everybody, but I don't know when I can. I said, well, I want to tell this other group of people first, but as soon as I'm done with that, then yeah, go ahead. But Beth said, well, that sounds very much like something the SPP guys would say, because she said, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, which is really hilarious because Beth has been doing all of the transcriptions for the Smarter Artist episodes. So she clearly knows what kinds of words come out of our mouths, like, more than anybody, including Cindy at this point, probably. So that was pretty funny. So anyway, welcome, Tammy.
Poor Beth.
Are you not going to mention the other acquisition recently, the other new family member?
Didn't I do that last week?
I don't feel like you did, but because I thought it was too new, but maybe not. Maybe you did.
I think I did that as something cool. Hey, in the comments, did we talk about your something cool? I see. Yeah. Oh, I know I did. I
thought it might have been tentative and we hadn't finalized it, or.
No, we did. I remember we did, because there was a part of that where I was actually talking to Tammy in the comments, which we talked about on our call a couple days ago. Yeah, but it was Clark Chamberlain is coming in, and he's our kind of our managing editor, our developmental editor for all of the other lines. But romance is its own thing. So as we're trying to build that out going into next year, we wanted someone specific, and Tammy is just she's such a part of the community and clearly steeped in romance. And it just, it was something we were going to do later next year, but we thought, you know what, like, let's just do it now. And we're growing really fast and we're iterating really fast right now. And it's good to get all the team elements in play so that 2017, we can just crush it.
Like the Justice League or the X-Men or the XXX-Men.
The other thing I would add is that during my
that's for the romance line.
Is that during my something cool, during listening to the Yesterday's Gone and Available Darkness backstories, is watching the interplay of Sean and Dave without me, is because Dave's the color guy, and so Sean will tell this long, because usually it's kind of I lead the backstories between Sean and I, and then he's like the guest sort of. But Sean's leading it, and then Dave's like color commentary, and he'll toss in little things like sing a little snippet of something or make a little witticism, a little observation. And so much entertainment.
Dave so clearly hates any obligation.
Everything.
Right. We'll save this for next episode, but he was bitching about something that's hilarious that I want to wait until next episode. But it's so classic Dave and so awesome. And it's going to make you SPP listeners feel so warm and fuzzy. So Dave, do you have something cool?
My something cool is what I was going to talk about on worst show ever, I guess.
This
that
isn't
baseball
the
started?
opposite of cool?
We won't be doing worst show ever.
Oh, I feel like we should jam one in. Let's just rush through SPP.
We could do a 10-minute episode. We could do that.
No, it's not even worth it. I'd rather not
I
do
really
it.
want to know.
No, look at the comments. It's worth it. People get upset.
No, I have an appointment this evening I cannot miss.
A redacted appointment.
Yeah. My son is now playing baseball, and I went to 2 practices so far, so that is my something cool. I'm actually enjoying it, so I don't have many bad things to say about it yet. So I was rather disappointed that I wasn't disappointed.
So are you saying that there's a possibility that several of the that some of the things you shit on, you might actually be wrong about and enjoy if you got into them? Let's take Dave to a water park next.
How much do I love that
And
he was
bowling.
disappointed that he wasn't disappointed? Like, he can't even be happy that, like, oh, it turned out it was awesome. He's actually disappointed that he's disappointed. Wow, Dave needs a
Well,
hug.
we're only 2 practices in. I have a feeling it's going to be a long season, and I was told it was going to be like an hour and a half, but apparently the games, there's no time limit on those. And
No, there isn't.
well, some of them
Heard
start.
that about baseball.
Some of them start like at 7:00, meaning we're going to get home way late. Then, yeah. So
There was a game when we went to Laredo this last summer, and by the way, baseball has started for us also, but it just ended a month ago. So I don't even like, where are their seasons here? It's just kind of perennial.
sounds like NASCAR.
Yeah,
All
but
year long.
we went to Laredo, and there was a team. They started at I want to say 7:00 their game, and it went to about 1 or 2 in the morning.
That man.
Yeah, it was 1:30, and it's because they just both had like no defense and really great offense, and the score was like 40 something to whatever. And
Wait, was it close? They should have enacted the.
You'd think it would be the other way around. Like they managed to match high offensive games exactly. Like I figured it'd be like it was 1-1.
no, they were just racking up points. They're just racking up points, and
But they have to rack up the same amount of points in order to.
But they did, and the game just kept going on and on and on. So, yeah, because we got delayed because our refs didn't show up, and then we started like they'd been playing forever, and they were playing forever after we were gone. And our game was super, super long, and I just felt like, oh my god, if I was on that team, I would just go lay in front of a truck. It's so terrible.
When I think of laying in front of a truck, I immediately think, who could I hire to design a book cover?
Wow, that was smooth.
That might have been the best segue ever.
Well, I mean, right? These are the
Smooth
things you
like
do.
butter, Danielle.
Well, let me try again.
And I'll add in that Marlon Brando movie.
Sometimes I feel like laying in front of a truck when I look
With
at some of
Marlon
the
Brando.
covers that are out there in the indie publishing world, just like Marlon Brando did the exact same thing.
Well, you don't need to do that. You don't need to consider offing yourself on a highway any longer, because 99designs.com/SPP is here to provide you a quality book cover. And I don't just mean quality. I mean, quality is an easy word to use. I mean an amazing book cover. You're going to get a book cover that looks like the other bestsellers in the store, the ones you are competing with. You want to look like them, right? You don't want to look like the MS Paint unwanted child.
I just came across a news story here that the creators of MS Paint and Comic Sans just laid down in front of trucks on the expressway, just like Marlon Brando.
They probably should. Yes, 99 Designs is great. I mean, we talk about them every week. They're our sponsor. Big surprise. We don't just spontaneously talk about them. They're our sponsor. But why are they our sponsor? Because they're awesome, and it's a service we've used many times. And
I think there's a good chance we would continue to spontaneously talk about them, even if they fired us, which, let's face it, is only a matter of time.
it would
That's inevitable.
then there would be cease and desist orders. Please stop talking about us.
I actually, if they do cancel us, I want to keep doing these anyway. Because
Don't tell them that. No, we don't work for free. We are whores.
And many of our listeners have used 99 Designs and had great success with it. You can look at the website. What is that link again, Johnny?
That link is sterlingandstone.net/99 designs, and you can see some of the fantastic design. I'm going to check that again because I haven't checked it in a while, and see the people who've gotten covers in our audience and how fabulous they are.
Yes, and it's a super easy service. It's basically you're holding a contest where you have this cover you want designed. You tell. You create a brief basically and tell people what you want. You show some other examples, and then you have designers competing to give you the best cover. And then you get to choose. And there's 2 rounds. You can get your fans involved, your readers involved, and that builds excitement for the book as well because now they actually, they're part of it. They're part of helping you choose that cover. And they're going to be a little more invested in the book, or at least know about it, that it's coming out, rather than, I got this book coming out. Now they see the process in play, and I think that's a lot more interesting for people.
I tried to have a Hunger Games style contest where people would fight to the death, and they actually wouldn't take that job. They weren't interested, they said. But for anything else,
you could probably get that in Florida,
right? All right,
Florida Designs.
Florida man hires design company, lays in front of truck.
FloridaManBookCovers.com. If that's not a site yet, it should be.
So start your custom design today at 99designs.com/SPP. That is the link where you get the free Power Pack upgrade. If you just go to regular old 99 Designs, you will not get the Power Pack upgrade. You will not be powered up, and you will just end up getting run over by some sort of a vehicle. I mean, that is pretty much what happens most of the time if you don't use the special link that is valued at $99. Boy, I'm really, really phoning it in today, I think. But if you do get a 99 Designs cover and you love it, which of course you will, send it to help@sterlingandstone.net. We'll put it up on our gallery. We'll talk about it and say how cool your cover is, and the world will be able to see it. And plus, they'll get more, insight into what a good 99 Designs cover looks like. So there you go. All right, so let's move into our topic, which is the idea
soggy middle.
Well, before that, Adam Murr has a comment. I think the Comic Sans hate has gone on long enough, and I'm insisting on it for my book cover and the internal text. Oh my God, that would be like.
Oh my God, I would love if somebody actually had the balls to do Comic Sans for the text. I think that would actually be kind of awesome.
You could do it ironically.
Yeah, it'd be like a hipster book.
There it is. There was a reference yesterday.
Hipster Hitler.
I know. Johnny straight up set you up for that. He knew you were going to say hipster.
Right. When you say doing something ironically, ding, hipster.
Logan said the LOL line. Books should have comics.
I'm going to play around with that, see what it looks like.
All right. So the idea of this idea of the Act 2 slump. If you've written, this is the sort of thing. Like I'm still a little bit in live event mode from last night. I feel like who's had problems in the second act? Raise your hand. But that is the sort of thing that usually it's like you know your setup, right? So this book is about this, and so I'm going to put these people in this situation, and then I'm going to start it out. I imagine that this is where a lot of people are excited because it's new, it's interesting, and then about Act 2, the middle of the book, like the middle third, is sort of where, okay, well, you've lost a lot of that original energy because it's getting hard. And then you haven't gotten to the part where you can start tying up loose ends, which is what happens in the middle. And most writers that I've heard say that the Act 3, the final part, goes fast. And it's that Act 2, it's what happens between your setup and your eventual resolution that it's like, well, what the hell do I do during that? And so that's what we're going to cover today.
Yeah, and I think that's normal for authors because the beginning is like, wee! I have this new idea, right? And you're
Sean
excited.
Actually makes that noise when he
I
stops.
totally do every time, wee! And so you're basically just throwing stuff against the wall, like you're excited, especially if you've done a really good job with that pre-production and you're just ready to write. But what does Joseph Campbell call it? The belly of the beast. The middle part is the belly of the beast, right? And that's just like where you're kind of figuring out. You're not getting into the belly. You're not out of the belly. You're just there. And so it can.
I know that feeling.
It can feel a lot slower. By the time you get to the end, you're wrapping stuff up. And you may have a couple of like climax issues or whatever. Dave, do you have
Oh,
those?
I hate when that
I
happens.
know that feeling.
So that may be part of it, but the second act, like, it can just feel rough, and it's also longer. Like, it's the longest stretch of the book, and you need to keep things moving and exciting for your reader. But how do you exactly do that?
I'm going to call on Dave at this point, because I'm thinking that as the tortured artist among us, we know that you hate a lot of what you write. How do you handle this issue of getting through the middle?
Hating myself, cutting myself. I don't know. Standing in a road waiting for a truck
I can picture this.
while cutting myself. It is the most difficult part. It's what you guys said. It's the longest part of the thing, because you got the beginning, you got the end, and you got to figure out how to connect these. And a lot of times, especially with me, like whatever transition we come up with to get from the middle or from the beginning to the end, it usually comes too easy, so it doesn't feel like it's worth it. Like it's not like that's the first thing we thought of, maybe the second thing we thought of, and it doesn't feel right. So we have to go through and figure out something better to make that middle part better, because if you go with the first thing you think of, a lot of times I feel like the middle part, it's going to drag. It's going to drag for the readers, and it's just going to pull the whole book down, and that is a disaster. So I think the biggest struggle is to really nail down the middle part and figure out what makes sense for the characters. And one of the other things is, a lot of times, like, you get to know the characters, especially with like a first book in a series, you get to know these characters more as you're writing, especially the beginning part. And then that changes a lot in the middle from what it was going to be to what it needs to be. And figuring that out is a process, and it's laborious.
How much of it do you feel is the characters trying to deviate from your beats versus sort of a general not knowing what to do that's best for the story?
Well, I think it's, I don't know that they're deviating from the beats so much as you're just realizing what you originally thought wasn't truly in line with what the characters were or what they would actually do. Like, you're getting to discover your characters better. And you see, like, the artifice of whatever the first thing you came up with is. Like, oh yeah, okay, that's first draft material right there. That's not really what these people would be doing. So I need to figure out what they would actually do. And sometimes, like, the conflicts, like that seemed really cool in the beginning, like, no, that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't ring true to the characters. So you got to kind of narrow down and figure that out and excavate.
Yeah, well, it's changed too, right? So at the very beginning of the book, you have a character who, like, they haven't changed yet, right? And they probably don't even want to change. They're happy with their life, their status quo. And then at the end, they've changed. But in the whole second act of that book, you have to justify that change. You have to make it believable step by step, so that when your character has gone through their full arc at the end of the story, it's believable and it makes sense and it's anchored in your story. And that can be difficult, because you have to show all of those little transitional periods for your character and make sure that it all makes sense, and one thing leads into the next. But I think focusing on character change, because really that's what we want to do, right? Find the tools because we all have to get through the middle. And even if the middle is easier for you, like, I've seen that a little bit in the comments. Oh, well, actually the second part's easy for me. It's starting that's hard, or ending that's hard. But probably the people who the second act is easier for them, it's because they have a tool set. They're oh, well, I'm going to focus on the character. Even if they don't realize that's what they're doing, there are things that make it easier for them. And maybe they're missing those things for the first part. Like, oh, well, how do I really make my character not want to go on this journey, or, refuse the call? But I think in the second act, one of the things that you can really focus on is that character change.
So, let's just talk briefly about three-act structure. I think that we try to outsmart, because we're creative people, we try to outsmart the something that's working. It's sort of the idea of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But creators often don't like to do that. And I know that Sean and I are guilty of this when we work together, and not about this, but in general. We're like, well, okay, so that's how it's normally done, but let's do something crazy. And
yeah, we're much better than we used to be, but yeah, that is a big failing of ours.
Right. So, and actually Sean brought this up last night when we were at this thing. Memento is something that people bring up, and they say, well, Memento doesn't really, I mean, it kind of does actually still, but it doesn't follow traditional, certainly chronology, but three-act structure, at least in the way it's normally thought of. Well, Memento wasn't a commercial success really until Batman Begins, right? I mean, that was when
it was never a commercial success. It's become a cult favorite. Like, I think it's done well on DVD, but it didn't even make its money back in the theater.
And there's a difference between a movie or book being good and being successful, right? And I can see the arguments here, like, well, I want to write a good book. Okay, well, great. I mean, you can definitely write good books that break traditional molds, but we're talking about kind of how to get unstuck. So if you there is a reason for a three-act structure, and it's because it kind of just resonates with the stories that we've heard over and over again. And so, set up, act one is set up, you're basically, these are the stakes. And then there's a plot point that basically changes the game. And then you have rising action through act two, which is the longest part. And then there's another plot point that changes it again. Like, these are the major, waypoints during your story. And then you have the build up, the crisis, and then eventually the resolution in act three. And so I think a good place to start is, do you have some basic idea of those two major plot points in the middle? I wish I had thought to have like some cinematic examples. So if you guys have any, that'd be great. But I think that in any well-told story, you'll notice that there are two major moments where something changes. And if you can start to pin those down first, I think that can help you, because you're saying, rather than saying, what do I do in the middle of the book? You're saying, how do I get from plot point two to plot point one to plot point two?
Yeah, I think something else that you can do that's actually great, as long as you do it in the right way, is invest a little more time in your subplots. But you can't do it in a way where all of a sudden you're ignoring the main story. Like, that's because that's checking Twitter instead of writing, right? It's just distracting yourself with candy. And you shouldn't do that. But if your subplot can, like, really weave into the main plot, and you're heightening tension, you're highlighting characters' emotions, there's things that you are doing to make the whole story harmonic. That's a pretty it's just an intelligent way to keep your interest and keep your readers' interest and feed the narrative by just paying attention to those subplots, and it can make that second act go faster.
At the risk of oversimplifying, Act Two is where stuff happens. I mean, obviously stuff happens throughout the entire book, but that's kind of where the meat of things is. Your book usually begins with your story begins with some element of status quo, usually in some way. And I like the idea of something changes to begin the story too. So if you're just going life as usual.
Well, here, if you want examples, how about Wizard of Oz, right? Wizard of Oz is very classic in this way, because you've got the whole, I mean, it's so dramatic. It's actually, hey, bitches, now we're in color, right? It's very dramatic in that, okay, our first act is done. We're now here in Oz. What next? And now what is the second act? It's actually a journey. It's get on the yellow brick road and shit is going to keep happening to you, right? And so that's kind of I think a clear illustration of what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's actually, I'll be impressed if anybody's seen this, but there's actually a sort of a cult film called Kafka. It's Jeremy Irons that uses that same device. It's black and white at the beginning and the end, and the middle is in color. And it's the same thing. It's like in the middle, and the Wizard of Oz is a great example, like the story of Oz is like its own story. The setup is, and actually I think that's a little extreme, because Act 1 and Act 3 are so short in that movie. It's what are you snickering about over there?
I'm laughing at Tammy, who in the comments said, I want to read Sean's beats for Wizard of Oz. Quote, get on the yellow brick road and shit happens, which is exactly how I would write that beat for you.
Right. So it's sort of, in a good story, you want your characters to grow and change. And usually at the beginning, like I said, there's usually some sort of inciting event. The status quo, in my mind, usually happens kind of before the story begins. And then Act 1 is something happened to provoke some sort of a change. And Act One is usually where, the end of Act One is usually where I think of, this is where you meet your major crisis point. This is where somebody has to sort of make a decision to, go all in or not, or they are all in by their own volition or not. And then Act Three is another turning point where something shifts. What Dave looks very thoughtful. He's playing with his eye over there. Are you? No. So I think that if you start to think of Act Two as the place where, that real meat of the action of a character wants something, confronts a challenge, wants something, confronts a challenge. Like that's the definition of rising action until you get to the point of sort of no return before there needs to be some sort of confrontation, either internal or external or whatever.
Yeah, I think the other thing on Act Two is that you really need a lot of, that's when you get that stop and start, right? So your characters have to try things and fail and try things and fail. You really need that whole 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it kind of has to be constant. It's almost a relentless feeling until you get at the end, and then it's like, finally, right? But to constantly just putting stuff in front of your characters and saying, no, not yet. You have to try that again. You get all that like false starts and false attempts. And it's like, oh, I have a great idea. And then it doesn't work. But the more times that happens, it's almost like when you get that final resolution at the end, it should almost feel inevitable. Like, well, of course you had to fail all these times for this thing to work.
I sort of feel, and this is sort of a spur of the moment assessment here. So let me know if you guys feel that this is fair. The plot point that transitions between 1 and 2 feels like where the person actually decides to go on the journey or is forced to go on the journey. So Act 1 is sometimes there's denial. It's all set up. It's all like, is this going to occur or not? And then Act 1 is where the actual journey begins, the beginning of Act 2. And then Act 3 begins when it's like that, then that action has basically reached a head. You've had enough of try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. But I think that if thinking of that, I mean, we're saying the same thing in different ways as we always do, is if you think of Act 2 as one long stretch where something's trying to occur and things keep happening, doesn't work out, they try something else. That's a good way, I think, progressively. I mean, the graph is always a slow progression, usually for rising action.
Well, it's also really paying attention to the character stuff, I think helps. So you can't just have a bunch of terrible things that happen to this person and not have it matter, right? It has to be things that are important to them. So if just bad stuff keeps happening to you and you're having to suffer the consequences, that's bad. But if they're consequences of your own choices, then that's worse. So let's say you need to get like a kidney to the hospital, right? Or a sick child to the hospital, and this
kidney isn't gonna make it. He's dead.
and you like, let's say you're willing to run a red light, but you get into an accident, and that's even worse, and now you're delayed. Well, it's your choice because you ran the red light. It's worse than just getting a red light and now you're late, and right. But if you run a red light and it's worse, it's like if your characters are making decisions that make it harder for them instead of just life and circumstances throwing things in their way, I think that's better usually, because you are actually, you're nurturing character growth in that way.
Another thing I think you want to do in Act 2 is to set up stuff that will pay off in Act 3 when you finally get to the end and the big battle of whatever is going on, to set things up so they're meaningful. They're not, like you said, they're not just random things. They're things that will have resonance and will have a payoff when Act 3 happens, when the character finally overcomes or is defeated by, if you're gonna have a bad ending, whatever was building up this entire time. But it's like having an itch, and 3 is the scratch that relieves it. I don't know.
No, that's a good point.
Right, because Act 3 is resolution, so you're basically more stuff to resolve, more stuff to have a satisfying resolution.
And this is true in a series too. So, in a book you have, that very classic structure, but in a series it's the same thing. If you have 5 books in a series, then in your very first series it's the same thing. You're setting that up, and the middle books are all going to be it's that soggy middle, except each one of them will have their own 3-act structure. But then the last book, even though it also has a 3-act structure, is also going to be focused on resolution, because that's when you make sure that everything is answered. Everything that you've done in the first 4 books have then kind of led to this inevitable conclusion in your 5th book.
Right. So I think that if you're having trouble figuring out where these things, if you know how your book is going to end, I've actually never used this, but I'm repeating something that I heard Sean say a few times recently, is the idea of asking questions to move backward. Do you want to describe this a little bit?
Yeah, because I think when you get stuck, it's really easy to just say, what do I do now? This kind of sucks. And you feel really frustrated. And if you think about where you want your character to actually be or go, or what that end result that you want to have happen, just ask yourself questions backwards until you can get to that point. So let's talk about the end of Star Wars, right? Which Star Wars has such classic story structure that it's always a great example. And what's the end of that movie? They have to destroy the Death Star, right? So there's a lot of stuff that happens in the middle of Star Wars. The beginning is pretty straightforward, and the end is pretty straightforward. They blow up the Death Star, and yay, the rebels.
No, you just spoiled it for me.
Sorry about that. But if you don't know,
has Logan seen Star Wars?
Yeah, I think he's seen that one. Remember, he's the dude who paid for tickets on either side of him to not be next to anybody during Force Awakens.
Oh, that's awesome. I do. I should do that. Either side of me and around me.
You should just buy out the theater, dude. Yeah. So if you don't know, how are they going to blow up the Death Star? First they have to get the plans, but they have to escape. Well, what happens when they're there? They need to actually rescue Princess Leia. I know this is a lot of spoilers, Logan, but they're going to rescue Princess Leia. Obi-Wan is going to have that fight with Darth Vader. You can just ask yourself, well, what happens next? Or backwards, it's, what would have to happen for that to happen? So what would have to happen for them to be able to blow up the Death Star? Well, they would have had to escape with the plans. What has to happen for them to escape with the plans? Well, maybe there needs to be a sacrifice. Obi-Wan Kenobi can't make it. He needs to, cover it so that they can all escape in the Millennium Falcon. Okay, well, what has to happen for that to happen? Okay, well, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader have to go toe-to-toe and have a lightsaber battle. Right? So all these cool things, they're all there to inevitably set up the fact that they're going to come back and blow up the Death Star.
Right. So let's break this down a little bit. Star Wars, as an example, the end of Act 1 is where they're going to go on the journey, right? That's the commitment point. And that happens when Luke meets Obi-Wan and basically decides that's Uncle Owen and who's I don't remember. They get
Brew.
Yeah, and he's got to go learn to be a Jedi. That's where Act 2 begins.
I was gonna go get power converter.
And because he's just kind of a whiny little bitch at the beginning. And then
he's such a bitch.
And then Act 2 ends and Act 3 begins, where he kind of it's his shift point. It's where he has to stop being a whiny little bitch who wants to go get the power converters, and it's where Obi-Wan is struck down, and that's basically that's where Luke has to step up.
He has to man up.
He has to, right. He's gonna have to handle this. So between those two, it's what is the rising action? And by the way, I'm gonna share a note in the chat, which I don't know how these things occur, but I'm hoping that somebody's in there who will grab that link, where they do 5-point breakdowns of popular movies, and there's a ton of them in there, and it's actually really fascinating.
Oh, that's cool.
I predict that Sean will go and spend hours and hours looking through this, and it gives the 5 points are the inciting incident,
Oh, I'm happy.
They call it lock-in, which is the end of Act 1. That's where I said they're going to go on the journey. And then the first culmination, which is the midpoint of the movie or the story, and then the end of Act 2, and then the third act twist they add here, or the resolution. So
this is awesome.
A little bit of candy. Have we done that so succinctly, or you just
Well,
dialed it in now?
Well, you put a link in, and I had to
Right.
go.
Now you have to go check it out. What about what about the flexibility? So, Dave, you mentioned that sometimes things shift because you get to know the characters. How often do you? So, two options. Number one, do you adjust Act 2 to conform to what you need to have happen in Act 3 because the characters are telling you? Wait, hold on. So do you adjust Act 2 so that it conforms to what you think needs to happen in Act 3, or do you listen to the characters enough that you end up changing Act 3? Like it fundamentally, like you can't use Act 3 the way that you conceived it originally. I can't hear.
Yeah, Dave, you're muted.
But both. Usually if I love Act 3, like if it's like perfect as it is, then I'm gonna have to find a way to make it fit, basically, to make Act 2 work perfectly. But more often than not, I think I'll find a better story if I just change everything that follows afterwards, because then you are listening to the characters more. And when you do that, you're gonna find what really resonates. Like I said earlier, when you're seeding stuff in Act 2, I think naturally that will change Act 3.
Do you have an example, Dave, of like a time when you really had to completely change Act 3, and then another example of a time when Act 3 was set, but you had to really tinker with Act 2 to get there?
I don't have a concrete example. I think I made changes to some of the stuff in Yesterday's Gone to work better with, the things that happened over time with the series. I can't remember exact things, but I know I changed some stuff for the end of Yesterday's Gone.
I think that's actually a pretty great creative exercise. Is if you take a movie that you really, really love, or you just really know well, like which is why Star Wars works, and you just go backwards from that, right? It could be a romantic comedy that you love, or anything really, and ask yourself that series of questions to keep going backwards and backwards and backwards, and kind of reverse engineer however they're doing that, and it might give you a little bit of insight into your own stories, or kind of help into how to make that work better.
Yeah, just as another example, I'm playing around on this site, and Raiders of the Lost Ark is another good one to look at, much like Star Wars. And I do think that if you think of the Act 1 transition as where the journey really begins, they're locked in, they're going on the trip, and when you look at Act 2 as kind of a point of no return where a change is necessary, the end of Act 1 is where he goes to Marion's, and her establishment burns down, and she's got the headpiece of the Staff of Ra, and she's like, "I'm your goddamn partner," and that's when they're going to go on the journey together. And then Act 2 ends when and I am reading this off of the site, but I totally agree with these, where he's got the rocket launcher aimed at the Ark, and he's going to blow it up. And then really the question is he all in on this? Like, is he gonna? You had an anecdote about the end, actually, didn't you, Sean? About
Raiders?
I'm trying to remember that now. Yeah, there was something about the "don't look at the Ark" thing. I know this is a little off what I was just trying to say. That Spielberg was. This is so indiscreet. Like, I thought there was something there that Spielberg mentioned about. Well, whatever. About faith. It was a faith thing that you told me about. But anyway, I mean, that's where he basically has to decide: is the Ark a relic? Is it something that he believes in? Does he want it for his own aims or for the greater good, basically? Like, I'm going to blow up the Ark. Like, if I can't have it, nobody can have it. And then Belloc basically calls his bluff. Like, okay, blow it up. It means nothing to you. Go ahead and blow it up, fucker. and that's where he has to, confront that. And then there's the resolution. The climax is slightly after the beginning of Act 3. It's not like right at that point. Anyway, so I could analyze these to death, but the question is, how are you getting from the point where they're committing to the point where they that's that point of no return? And I think it's just rising action. It's just challenge. Look at Raiders, right? He's trying to, so when he's locked in, he's gonna get the Ark, like he's got the headpiece. When he's trying to blow up the Ark or threatening to blow up the Ark, that's the point of no return. So what is it that you need to do between those 2 points if you're writing that story? And he's basically going to go to find the Ark. So he goes to, he flies around the globe. He gets Belloc, Belloc's staff is too long and they're digging in the wrong place. And then he's got to find the chamber, and then he's got to go after it. And then they close them in. They close Indy and Marion in, and they have to escape. And the Nazis are chasing him. Like, these are all things that happen in just the pursuit of how are we going to get the Ark? And then he gets it and they take it away, and then he takes it away and they take it away from him. Like, this is just a series of, he wants the Ark and he can't get the Ark. He's
a selfish man.
Yes.
Is he supposed to be the good guy? I never really got the appeal of Indiana Jones.
Wait, what? Okay, that's a whole episode. You never got the appeal of Indiana Jones?
Did you know he's a pedophile?
No.
Sean did raise that one once.
Wait. Dave, is that a real thing? You never saw the appeal of Indiana Jones?
No, I never really did.
Okay, Logan makes a really good point here. He says, and I quote, Indiana Jones and the Goonies? What is wrong with you?
I don't know.
Do you just not like Spielberg?
No.
Corey Feldman was not in Indiana Jones, was not in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So you can't blame that one on him.
Sam says Dave hates the world. I always assumed it was just a shtick, but this is beyond the pale.
No. How can you? How?
I feel that way about a lot of action movies. Like,
wait. No. Because Logan said Angry Birds, though. So good.
It was
Dave. He's got the attribution -Dave. That's the quote.
A lot of times, a lot of action movies feels like one white dude that's going around fucking shit up for everybody, and just to get whatever it is he wants. It doesn't feel like the hero story to me. I don't know.
Wow, this just became all political.
Okay.
How do you feel about movies with a black protagonist?
Is he fucking shit up for everybody? Probably not.
All right. Okay. He was getting this like all powerful thing, keeping it from the Nazis. Like,
okay. Well,
and then Aaron Brockovich was fucking shit up too. Right?
The Nazis, Hitler. Your friend.
Okay, you found the real reason. I was upset. Hitler should have got it.
Hitler wants this like thing that's going to destroy the world. But
I don't remember that part. I don't remember enough of Indiana Jones. It just, I don't know. It just never really gelled with me. I don't know. Never mind. We just went off as a side tangent. I mean,
no, but this has been my favorite part of the episode. I need a team of scientists to study you, because I don't understand how you could never, even as a little boy, like.
Well, see, that's the problem. I didn't see it when it came out. I saw it like a little bit later, like after everybody had made it into like the best movie ever. And I actually saw it in a Kmart. I was watching it.
Okay, well, there's your problem. Why are you watching Indiana Jones in Kmart? Have you seen it? Since
I don't think anybody in history has ever seen Indiana Jones in Kmart. You're the only one.
At the time, we did not have a VCR. We were poor, and I was bored, and I rode my bike
so
like
you
5
miles
Kmart
to watch Indiana Jones.
No, actually, I rode 5 miles to go to the comic book store, but Kmart was right near there, so I went in there to look for something, probably notebooks to write in, and I saw they were playing Indiana Jones, and I sat there for 2 hours watching the damn thing. And afterwards, I was like, "This wasn't that great."
I would wager that the circumstances of your watching it may have influenced your enjoyment of it.
Have you seen it since the Kmart experience?
No, I did see the third one though, and I saw it with my best friend, and we were just laughing because like everything blew up. Like if a horse fell down, it blew up. It was like ridiculously stupid.
No, you're thinking of Birdemic.
I think that's where Birdemic got the inspiration.
Oh man, I don't know what to say. I did not know this about you. You are I do get to constantly find out
like when I'm watching I like James Bond movies, but then I'll see how many innocent people got killed in trying to get this one dude that the death toll just doesn't seem to match up. I think sometimes a hero does more bad than good in a movie.
Wow, this is just this is better than therapy. I'm getting so much insight.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to you right now, Dave.
How do you feel about the Bourne movies or something? There's a lot of collateral damage in there.
I know, and I like those movies because they're good, but there is some part of me that's thinking, oh my God, that whole village just died, so he can escape something, and what the fuck? I don't know.
What?
I think too much.
I missed that part of
the people off screen.
I missed that part of Bourne. When did the whole village die?
Okay, I don't remember.
Somewhere in the world, a whole village died during the filming of that movie. Let's not be naive.
Especially car chases in movies, especially those.
It's nice to see you liven up, though. That's kind of awesome.
Well, car chases in movies, I can't even watch fucking Fast and the Furious because I know I'll be furious if I watch it. But in a car chase in a movie, you see a bus flip over and it takes out a minivan. And oh my God, there's kids in that minivan. If this was their movie, that's a horrible tragedy. But
you should write the movies behind the movie.
You absolutely should.
What?
You should write the movies behind the movies. So think of Speed. Yeah. And then you write the story of some random family going to Target that day. That fucking buses out there.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't know.
What would be the Act 2 and Act 1 transitions in that one?
Logan said Dave should watch Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman. I did watch Man of Steel. Batman versus Superman, I will watch eventually. I haven't watched yet. I'm waiting for it to come out in Kmart.
Yeah, I actually thought of Man of Steel because I just remembered there being I watched that, and I don't think of these things. I remember watching that movie and going,
I did during Man of Steel.
The whole world is basically dying because of these sons of bitches.
Yeah, well, also it was worse with Man of Steel because
and Marvel actually addressed that in the Captain America
Civil War. Yeah, they did. They did a great job addressing that. And Man of Steel was a little what made that hard to watch was that it's so counter to the actual character himself, who is very aware of that type of stuff, but whatever. So I actually like talking about movies in this way, and I think it's a really great way to understand story and deconstruct it.
And to understand Dave.
And understand Dave, that's very true. So we can end with teasing that is actually what the next SPP is going to be. It's 9 movies that every writer should see. So that'll be really fun to talk about.
If you're watching live, that's in a few minutes.
Yeah, that's in a few minutes. And I think we've lubed Dave up a little bit. I think he's ready for the next episode. This is good. We should always record 2 back to back and then just throw them away. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Because
Dave's movies are The Human Centipede, a Serbian film, and a theatrical adaptation
of Mein
Kampf.
On Your Grave.
Right.
Oh, what was yours?
A theatrical adaptation of Mein Kampf.
Wow.
The musical. Oh, no, I don't like musicals.
Would you watch Mein Kampf the musical, though?
On ice.
Springtime for Hitler.
So there you go. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. I feel like we need a call to action, but I actually don't know what to send people to. So I don't know. Listen to SPP. But do listen to the next one if you're here live. I think it'll be really cool. We've all actually picked movies in advance. We're not going to go by the seat of our pants. So that's good stuff.
I have a call to action. If you've read Available Darkness, please leave a review.
Oh, yeah, do that. Do that.
Review.
Do that because it's just heartbreaking to look and see.
It is hard.
One review. And this book took 17 years.
Yeah.
It also raped Dave's soul.
Yeah.
That's the real thing.
But what doesn't? Let's be fair.
But don't review it as a mercy review. If you liked it, review
no,
it. If you hated it, please don't review it.
We'll take mercy reviews, but not if you hated it.
No, I don't want mercy reviews.
No, he's just not being straight with you. Dave wants 5-star reviews for AD.
No.
Tell him it's not a mercy review, but go ahead.
Yeah, and Oh, damn it. I just saw something
Well,
I want to
Christine
respond.
says,
Oh,
Christine
Dead City. Yeah, that's
Dead City. Right. And I thought I'd said that a lot lately, but yes, if you aren't following Dead City on the Indie Fiction podcast, it's picking up steam. It's in Act 2, let's just say. And Dead City is our Walking Dead versus. I'm sorry, Walking Dead meets All the President's Men. It's a zombie thriller. It's not like a zombie book that you've ever seen before. I don't think I've never seen anything like it. And it is free on the Indie Fiction podcast, professionally produced, read by Scott Brick, who's top tier narrator, and also looks a little like William H. Macy, I'll add, if that sways you in any way. And it's you can get it on iTunes, Stitcher, normal podcast places. And if you want the free bonus that we did, we'll give it to you in written, like ebook format, as well as audio, also read by Scott Brick. And that's at sterlingandstone.net/IFP for Indie Fiction Podcast. You get it there. And that's really, really good too. And that would make Dave cheer, I think. Cheer and jump up and down, that move that is so uplifting, that short story. So, all right. So that's been an SPP. Stay tuned.
People that are here, stay here.
People who are live, stick around. Same bat channel. And if you're not live, then you'll hear us next week talking about 9 movies that every writer should see. Thanks for listening.